Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Demystify Selling with Microsoft. And I'm excited for my guest today, Grant Melstad. And I met Grant, he's got a very similar philosophy to me in terms of owning his own business inside of Microsoft as a seller and how he works with the clients. And I'm excited to share that discussion with you. So, welcome, Grant.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and so before we get started, Grant, maybe you can take a minute and just share with the audience a little bit about your role and where you sit inside of Microsoft so that everybody has context for today's conversation.
Yeah, indeed. So I've been at Microsoft a little over 7 years. I currently sit in a security specialist role within inside of SMC West specifically. And I cover mainly SLG accounts, so state, local government.
Great.
Um, yeah,
Cool. And so, just so that people understand, to kind of give context, in the SMC organization, you're focused on state and local government. And what size type customers would you be working with in that sort of industry vertical or that government vertical?
so this year it actually changed a little bit. Our fiscal year changed in July. We had a big influx of probably previously unmanaged
Okay.
or what we used to call scale customers. Um, so I've actually got about a 50-50 split of customers who are now classified as AE managed inside of SMC. So they have your traditional account manager along with all of the specialist resources like myself in security, Azure, Dynamics, Surface, right? All the Microsoft product areas. But then I also have half my account list that has this non-AE covered motion. So it's 75 customers that are AE covered, 75 that aren't. And really, when you think about where traditionally majority of the uh, revenue from a customer perspective typically comes from Modern Workplace. So in
Mhm.
a lot of those non-AE managed accounts, me as the Modern Workplace security specialist is really kind of taking point as that customer's main point of contact in a lot of those scenarios. So it's kind of a unique balance that we're
Yeah.
having to play this year.
Right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, then you've got your traditional role that historically we would all be used to as partners, is that you're there supporting the modern work security, sort of as the specialist when there's an AE assigned. But now there's also this group of customers that there is no AE assigned. So you become, is that the main point of contact really for the customer and for partners for those unmanaged?
Yeah, I would say that segment, kind of this new non-AE managed segment, has really traditionally been the kind of solely partner led type of accounts, and you probably think of those are typically from I have some that are 300 seats all the way up to like 1,000 seats. We'll just say is kind of a rough threshold, and
Sure.
then from 1,000 up to you know really could be whatever, right? 8, 10,000. That's really where those AE managed customers sit. Um, so again, it's been a unique change that we've had this year, and it's really forced me, right, to just kind of reevaluate how I operate my business, how I go and scale. Because with obviously 150 customers, I have to rely on my partners to be successful.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great point. And kind of where I wanted to go today was really talk about that partner engagement and the kind of I talk about these two tracks that a partner can follow in terms of how they can add value to you in your role. And, obviously with, essentially doubling your accounts, you really have to rely on the partner community now to um, be with you, sort of go on the journey with you. And that's really what I wanted to dig into today, is that journey that when you connect with a partner, how important it is for you to really understand the value the partner can bring to you. So if that's good with you, let's dive into that and talk about the partners and what makes a great partner for you.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I think that kind of to your point about this episode, this podcast specifically, and we'll call it the two tracks, right? That
Yeah.
folks I think sometimes fall into. Um, I'll really preface it kind of in two perspectives. So Microsoft as an organization, right, has these big, obviously, customer sets. We've got, hey, how do we address our different, enterprise, SMC, SMB, like how do we support these customers?
Mm-hmm.
And in SMC specifically, we've got, I think, 5,500 FTE, right, that are aligned with, I don't know exactly even the number of customers, right, that we're aligned with, but it's obviously a one to many type of scenario.
Right, right.
And I think what I've seen, or excuse me again, so that kind of organizationally, the Microsoft goes, okay, obviously we have to scale with partner.
Mm-hmm.
How do we do that? We're going to leverage, programs. We're going to leverage workshops. We're going to leverage investments, right? To go out and have our partners really sell for us,
Mm-hmm.
support our customers for us, right? So that's kind
Yeah.
of the organizational, I think, perspective when I think of how Microsoft goes to market. And,
Yeah.
and I agree with it, right? Now, to put yourself in an end seller's shoes, like myself, right?
Right.
So I have my book of business. I have my customers, and really, when I go and I want to sell, and I want to work with, and I want to support my customers, who do I like to go to battle with? Who do I like to go sell with?
Yeah.
It's people that I trust. It's people I know, right? So
Right.
the most successful partnerships that I've seen in my business are the folks that are like, hey, you know what? I want to meet with you, Grant. I want to understand, what are your goals? What are your priorities? What are your metrics that are viewed as being successful? What do your KPIs look like? Um, and even to take it a step further, then okay, yep, I understand you, Grant. That makes sense. I'll tell you a little bit about what we do, where our superpowers are, what our perfect kind of customer fit is. But then, hey, Grant, as you're going and you're trying to prospect to your customers, you're trying to create new business, we maybe have this strategic offer that you can leverage as kind of a hook,
Yeah.
right? Because I think there's sometimes even a misconception that definitely having the Microsoft, you know, domain name behind my email address, having the Microsoft title in, when I reach out to customers, like indeed, there's a very strong brand
Yeah.
behind, when I go to a client. But of course, just like in anything, there's always scenarios where it's like, oh, maybe the customer hasn't traditionally been super excited about Microsoft, or
Right.
maybe they've got a million and one other things going on.
Yeah.
So giving me also some additional, things that can get people on the hook for like, oh yeah, this is important, or hey, I would like to learn more about this specific thing, or hey, yes, we do have that problem, maybe that you just called out, and then I can offer up a kind of pre-sales type of engagement or something like that. I see that's where I've seen the most success, and it's really a win-win for everybody. Customers happy because we solve problems. I'm excited, of course, because hopefully we sell some additional Microsoft licensing, and then
Yeah.
our partners, hopefully we create some type of SOW, we get to implement, we implement the solution. And then I think the biggest thing is give the partner the opportunity to create that strategic long-term relationship with the client.
Right. I mean, yeah, there is so much to unpack there.
And I probably gave you too much info right away, but
But
that's
no,
kind of what I think about.
yeah, yeah, no, I love it. And so for me, I just want to touch on that very last point that you made about the win-win. I think about it and I share with partners that when you're working with Microsoft, it really needs to be a win-win-win relationship. Obviously we all want the customer to win, but Microsoft, you, Grant, needs to win and the partner needs to win. And if you come in with that mindset that, we're all going to move forward in service of the customer, in service of that outcome that the customer is looking for. But we all want to win together. And understanding that as a partner is so critical because you've got to understand the business problem that the customer has. You have to understand what Grant needs in order to be successful in his role. And you need to understand what you need as a partner to be successful, as a partner seller. So I love that, Grant. So, but let's start unpacking some of what you went through there. And at the very beginning, you talked about, quickly you touched on when you meet with a partner, you want to understand what their superpower is, what they're great at, what they'll go toe to toe with. And you also talked about understanding what their ideal client is. And maybe you can talk a little bit about when you have that first meeting, maybe walk us through a hypothetical meeting with a new partner. The first time you meet with them, what are some of the things you want to hear from that partner so that you can start to build that trust that you talked about?
Yeah, great question. I think that everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, I've seen a lot of scenarios where I go to calls and it's like, hey, yep, we can do everything. We can support all the Microsoft technology. We can support any type of customer. Like, we can do it all.
Hmm.
And maybe you can, right? I'm not going to say that you can't,
Right.
but I think from my perspective, I go, okay, well, I work in a little bit unique of a territory where all of my customers in state and local government typically are in the GCC environment, government
Right.
community cloud, which
Yeah.
maybe has its little sets and nuances versus commercial, right?
Hmm.
So that's something I think about right away. Then I go, okay, I'm a security focused seller. Well, security is obviously a very large arena of
Hmm.
things when we think about there's obviously, the different layers of security with identity, device, data, endpoints. Then you talk compliance, right? You talk all these different things. And
Right.
hey, maybe, yes, the partner has great expertise in all the areas. Okay, it's a home run. But if you have specific things that, like, hey, we're really strong in this specific area, or,
Hmm.
we have a strategic kind of go to market offer for, you know, we'll say passwordless, or just like some of these kind of big picture hot
Yeah.
topics that customers are thinking about, talking about, getting excited about.
Yeah.
Those are the types of things that then I can go back to my customer and say, hey, I've got a strategic offer for you. I've got a
Hmm.
great partner, I think, that we can be really successful in working with. Would you entertain, a quick 30-minute introduction, or hey, would you be open to a warm intro? That's the type of stuff that, again, I think when we have the opportunity to sit down, have a discussion, be open and honest, candid about, hey, this is where we can help. And hey, if you can't help in a specific scenario, that's totally fine.
Right.
I'm okay with that because we've got, of course, a bunch of other folks that would love
Yeah.
to be invited, to the opportunity, and we all
Right.
work
And you've
together.
got 150 other accounts that maybe have the problem you solve.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think of that as relevance. Like if a partner understands where they're relevant, what business problems they solve, it seems to me that that brings a great deal of value to you in kind of your ability to run your book of business and know where to plug partners in when they're clear on what they're good at and what kind of relevance or value add they bring to the end customer solving a business problem. Um,
And I'll chime in one more thing. I think
sure.
when you look at kind of how some of the Microsoft organizational structure changed from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. Last year I was a all up modern workplace SSP.
Okay.
So when you think of all up modern work, there's productivity, there's collab, there's security, then there's things like telephony, there's Power BI, there's Power Apps, all these different areas. And a
Yeah.
lot of times I would be honest with customers and I say, hey, you know what? This platform that Microsoft has created is so large. I'm kind of the jack of all trade, master of none. I
Yeah.
know you have deeper questions about that specific area, this specific area. I'll bring in a specialist. I'll bring in the right partner. Okay. And that's kind
Yeah.
of how I operated. This
Yeah.
year, security focused, I've been able to get deeper in security compliance. So I've been able to get more focused. And I think it really resonates with, hey, how do our partners operate? If they have, like you said, kind of a niche, hey, here's our specialty, here's our superpower. I want to amplify that. I want to raise it up. Really say, hey, this is who would be a great person to work with. So just wanted to add a little bit more context and clarity of how I even see of how I've had to shift and adapt in kind of my go-to-market approach, right, with my
Right.
customers.
Yeah, no, and that's great. And that kind of leads me into this that first track of the type of Microsoft partner. And they understand, I talk to Microsoft partners about what's in it for Microsoft to work with you? What value do you bring? And I think that that first track of partners is the partners that really understand how to bring value to Grant and to all of Grant's peers so that they can build that reputation as a trusted partner and really build build that really tight relationship where you know what they bring, they know how to help you, and so maybe you can talk a little bit more about the kind of value you look for from a partner, whether it be early on in the pre-sales or all the way through to the sort of deployment and consumption. And maybe talk about what those things are that you say, oh my goodness, that adds a ton of value when you do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can think of even characteristics of people that you maybe just like to interact with and be around, even outside of work, right,
Right?
Rob? And like, who do I like to interact with and be with in my personal life? It's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
people that communicate,
yeah.
right? We go back and forth. We're on top of, hey, what are things we're working on?
Mhm.
We strategize on, hey, what would be again some maybe good go to market approaches, or hey, like Grant, here's something potentially that you offer up as a hook, right, for your customers, and then going and helping me pre-sale. I think that, of course, I always think of partners as, hey, they're going to help deploy the solution. They're going to ongoing support a solution. They're going to maybe be there for a managed service, something like that. And
Mhm.
that's all great. And that's a big part of it. But when I have a cost or a partner that's willing to kind of go help me pre-sale a little bit and say, hey, this is how a Microsoft solution might stack up with a vendor you currently have, or hey, here's maybe some value that you can get out of the platform as a whole
Yeah.
that you're not seeing today in your siloed kind of best of breed approach. So it's again that kind of it's the relationship piece,
Mhm.
open lines of communication, we understand each other. It's then when you're with the client, we're doing this together as kind of a one Microsoft type of approach.
Yeah.
And then the biggest thing, right, is like once we can get that first win,
Yeah.
we win that first deal, we get that customer, as a raving fan for not only Microsoft, but for the partner, then
Yeah.
that just builds momentum, right? Hey, now we've got a process that we can repeat over and over and
Over
over
and
and
over.
over again.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think you touched on a few things there. One, the communication. I think that's critical. The concept of one Microsoft, that is a big concept. That is not just Microsoft operating on their own or the partner on their own. It's us all coming together. So I think that that's a big part of it. And then I love what you said about the pre-sales, going out there and hunting with you, finding the opportunities with you, not just waiting or sitting back. So I think that that first track, that's a big part of the value. The type of partner that I sort of categorize in track one is the person that's coming out and adding value. So I love that. Let's flip the script a little bit and talk about when a partner reaches out and it's like a red flag for you. What is it that sets off those, like, wait, something's not quite right here for Grant?
I mean, I think we've all seen, heard, been in the hey, let's just share account lists. Let's see if we've got stuff going on.
Yeah,
Maybe your customers that we've worked on. Let's see what you've got going on. Um, More of just transactional.
yeah,
I mean, and it's really just as simple as that. Like,
yeah,
I think that if somebody isn't willing or uh, eager enough to take the time, even if it's a 15-minute conversation, hey, let's jump on, introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about, your 60-second elevator pitch, where you think you can help, obviously ask a couple good questions. Um, if that isn't something that I see right away, it's typically, one of those like, okay, they're in the file of
yeah,
potential folks that I can work with. But again, it's selling with, working with people that people that
right.
you trust, people that you develop the relationships with. Because I think one other thing folks have to understand is if I'm going to put my name, and not and even more than just the Microsoft name, if I'm going to put Grant's name on the line of, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I think, you know, these 2 to 3 partners would be a great fit for you and your
Mhm.
organization. If that falls flat, or if things don't go as the way I teed it up and talked about, who
Mhm.
does that look bad on?
Right.
Me.
Yeah.
And I've got a brand, I've got a reputation, right, that I'm
Yeah.
always working towards of trying to provide an experience and a level of expectation that the customer is going to get when they interact with me,
Yeah.
right? So then you as the partner are an extension of my team, and I want to hold you, of course, at that high standard too.
Right. Right. And I think you brought up some really, one of the things that you said was, a red flag for you is that transactional approach versus the relationship approach. And I think that's in my mind, that second track. There's the track of add value, trusted, going to be there with you, do a to sell together versus the, hey, Grant, just give me, what opportunities you have that you can share with me. And that's
Yeah.
not that's the wrong kind of mindset to show up with. And so I think that's, really important that partners understand that you're going to fall into one of two camps in the seller's mind, or the Microsoft seller's mind, is person there to add value or the person there that just wants a transaction. And it's two wildly different sort of
Mhm.
tracks. So great, great.
And I think that, like, when you think of even then, if your goal is just to complete a transaction, hey, you know what? If that's all you want to do, okay, then so be it.
Mhm.
But we all know that when you develop the relationship, when you add value, you create the long-term partnership.
Right.
And that's where, hey, maybe today it's a small opportunity that you're working on. It's a small piece of the big solution,
Yeah.
but you get that first win, you establish the credibility. That's going to just feed into more and more as you go. And
Yeah.
it's a long-term play. I mean, I think of, even when I look at fiscal year over fiscal year,
Yeah.
I'm working with customers, and this probably happens in commercial too, but my SLG business, my customers are already budgeting into calendar year 25.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, if you're not playing the long game, I think you're just doing it wrong.
Right. It's such a great point. Well, let's dig into that for a minute because I think that's so important to understand the market that you're playing in. So the SLG market, to your point, they're already thinking 1, 2, 3 years out. And so partners, you know, I think, and maybe you can talk to this of, what are some of the other things that are unique and special to the SLG organization versus, a traditional commercial account? Some of the things that, you touched on GCC and that. So
Mhm.
what are some of the other things that you think about that are unique and specific to SLG?
I think definitely the timelines, the
Hmm.
budgeting, that has its unique set of um, challenges you need to overcome.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think probably 95 to 98% of my customers have to have everything approved by a city council. So they're
Right.
having non-technical, non really people totally outside of the arena are
Yeah.
saying, man, why do we need to do this again? So you have to really focus on, the business value. Hey, why is this important? How does this impact, the whole organization? And in my case, a lot of times it's cities, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then there's also the kind of product parity piece that can at times be
Mm,
challenging.
right. That's a good
And I'll
point.
use I'll use Copilot for an example.
Hmm.
Obviously, Copilot's very popular, talked about. Um, I've been using Copilot; it's great, but that isn't going to be available for GCC customers until at least sometime in the summer of 24. Which,
Right.
really, when you think again about that budgeting piece I talked about, it's not that far away.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
folks that want to do stuff now, are eager about doing stuff now, kind of pump the brakes a little bit, right?
Right.
So I think it's there's many things, that makes it different. Um, but that could be an argument for any customer, right? Of, hey, maybe manufacturing's a little different than retail, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe, consumer goods is different than, financial services or healthcare, right? Each specific vertical is going to have their own little nuance or difference to it. Uh,
Yeah.
and being able to truly understand that and then be able to work with that buyer, understand how they do things, how they think, then you're set up for success, right? Put yourself in their shoes.
Right, right. I mean, you bring up a bunch of great points there. For me, as a partner, coming in and being able to say, look, Grant, I understand how to work with the SLG organization. I understand the purchasing processes. I understand how important it is to stand up or be prepared to help your people work through the city councils and all that. So having that unique knowledge, I got to imagine is valuable versus someone coming and say, "Hey, well, just give me a lead, and if it's so, no problem, I can do cities all day long." If you've never done it, it's completely different in my mind. I
Yep.
mean, it's a different purchasing cycle. They operate at a different speed,
Yep.
and they're held to different standards. To your point, just the concept of going to a city council. I mean, you're talking to people that have no idea about IT potentially, but they have a fiscal responsibility for the budget, and so
Yep.
that's where they're coming from. So there's just so much that's unique to that, and
Yep.
great, great. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time here, Grant, and I just wanted to ask one final question: is if you had to give one piece of advice to a partner today to help them be successful in the Microsoft ecosystem, what's the first thing you would share with them, or the sort of biggest thing, whatever comes sort of top of mind for you in terms of helping partners be successful?
I think that, and I'll kind of layer this in multiple um, roles right across an organization, because I know that in our partner, community, there's of course folks at the top, right, that have to have these bigger picture kind of strategy type of sessions, conversations, kind of like I mentioned in the beginning of the call, where,
Right.
hey, Microsoft goes to market and they have huge amounts of funding opportunity. Like, how can we take advantage of that?
Yeah.
Indeed, make sure that your organization is aligned with and familiar of how to leverage any type of Microsoft investments you can get
Hmm.
to obviously help a customer be successful. I mean, that's at the top, right?
Yeah.
But I think as you go down into the layers of, managers, sales directors, even like the folks like myself and sellers, boots on the ground, that's where I
Hmm.
think you start to really ratchet down to sales is all about, like I mentioned before, the relationship.
Yeah.
It's getting to know people. It's just taking the time to understand, again, what makes each other successful. Really, where can I help? Where can I help you? Where can you help me?
Yeah.
So my challenge and ask whenever I visit with folks is, hey, I really want to sit down with or work with the people on your team who are
Right.
doing the similar thing that I'm doing, because then we can go together to, you know, achieve whatever we're trying to do. And we're going to be much more aligned than maybe if I were to work with, the director of your business who potentially has, other sets of priorities or things that they're working on.
Yeah.
Um, so again, I think it's the relationship piece. If you're
Yeah.
not willing to invest in people, it's
Right.
difficult, right?
Yeah. Right. Why bother? Yeah. Don't bother, because it's to your point. I think that's such a valuable piece of advice, is that you have to reach out and you have to build that relationship, because selling isn't easy. We've got to do it together, and you can benefit from the scale, the partner can benefit from having that understanding and working with you, sort of the introductions, and so there's just value on every side of the equation if you're willing to invest in the relationship. So I love that, Grant. Thank you. And just as we're wrapping up, is if somebody wants to get a hold of Grant, what's the best place?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn, is a great place.
Great.
I'm fully bought into the platform. Obviously, with Microsoft having owning LinkedIn, I love it. Use it as a prospecting tool. Use it as a networking tool. So definitely connect. Shoot me a message, and I'd be really happy to visit with anybody who wants to try to continue to better position themselves in the ecosystem. Um, and I think people that are, resonating with this conversation and going, yeah, you know what? Maybe I don't know who the right players are internally. Maybe I don't, totally understand the organizational structure. And you know what? That's okay. Let's talk
Mhm.
about it. Let's network a bit. And I think we can all be, of course, successful.
Now that's great, Grant. And for those that don't follow Grant, I know personally I follow you. You publish a lot of great content, and so please follow Grant on LinkedIn. And as he said, if you want to reach out, that's the best place to get. So, Grant, thank you again. I appreciate all your time and for everything you shared with the partner community. And I hope you have a great day.
Of course. You too, Rob. Thanks for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Take care.